Here with us now is former Pima County Sheriff Richard Carmona and former FBI agent and News Nation law and justice contributor Jennifer Coffindaffer. Good morning to both of you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Let's get right into those new comments made by an anonymous source inside the investigation. They spoke to our Brian Enton. They said police were not even looking at this as a criminal matter. I want to play a short part of it.
And my sister called me and I said, "Is everything okay?" Yeah. And she said, "No." She said, "Mom's missing." And I said, "What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?" She said, "She's gone." And she was in a panic. I was in a panic. I'm like, "Call 911.
He is going to turn on the television tomorrow morning. He is going to watch. And for the first time in 65 days, she is going to be looking back. That is what happens tomorrow at 7 o'clock when Savannah Guthrie walks back into Studio 1A at Rockefeller Plaza, the most watched morning show in America. 3 million people tuning in before 8 o'clock. And one specific person, the person who came to a house in the Catalina foothills of Tucson, Arizona, in the middle of the night and walked an 84-year-old woman out of her own home, turning on his television and watching the daughter he thought he had broken. She is not broken. She is going back to work. And that, not the DNA in 2 laboratories, not the Bitcoin address being mapped by the FBI's virtual asset unit, not the contractor list that investigators are calling a mess. That is the single most powerful thing that has happened in this investigation in 65 days. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand something that no other coverage of this case has fully assembled. You are going to understand why Savannah Guthrie, sitting down at that anchor desk tomorrow morning, is not a grief story and not a television story. It is an investigative move. And the person who took Nancy Guthrie did not see it coming. There is something we need to show you about why Savannah chose April 6th specifically, not April 1st, not April 10th, April 6th. The mainstream coverage has not asked that question. The answer changes everything about how you read tomorrow morning. But first, who Nancy Guthrie is. Oddly, because you cannot understand what tomorrow means without understanding the woman at the center of it. Her name is Nancy Long Guthrie. She is 84 years old. She was born January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. She moved to Tucson over 50 years ago and never left. She tended her garden. She kept her home exactly the way she wanted it. She attended virtual church services every Sunday morning with the same group of friends over the telephone. The same group, the same time, for years. She wore a pacemaker. And every night before she went to sleep, she removed her hearing aids and placed them on the nightstand beside her bed. According to what Savannah confirmed publicly, Nancy was funny, a little mischievous, resolute, hard-fought faith, quiet strength. It's the kind of woman who had survived more loss than most people are ever asked to absorb, and had done it standing up. Her husband Charles died in Mexico in 1988, a mining trip that was supposed to be routine. He was 49. Savannah was 16. Nancy was alone with 3 children in a life that needed rebuilding. She rebuilt it. And in the darkest days of that loss, she told her daughter something. You have to get up and decide and do. Just decide and do. That is the woman who was taken. That is the sentence her daughter has been living by for 65 days. And that is the thread that connects everything this video is going to show you. On the night of January 31st, 2026, her son-in-law Tommaso Cioni drove her home after a family dinner at her daughter Annie's house. He watched her go inside. The garage door closed at 9:50 p.m. She was never seen again. At 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, the doorbell camera disconnected from the network. Manual disconnection. At 2:12 a.m., a motion sensor detected a presence on the property. No video. The camera was already dark. At 2:28 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker disconnected from her phone. 41 minutes. That is the entire window. From the camera going dark to the moment she was moved beyond Bluetooth range of her own phone. 41 minutes inside a house that, when investigators arrived, showed no signs of a struggle anywhere. The rooms were immaculate. Her phone was there. Her purse, her medication, her shoes. Everything she would need to survive was inside that house. She was not. And at the front door, her blood, on both sides of the threshold, confirmed by DNA. A trail of droplets moving outward, toward the porch, toward the desert night that swallowed her whole. 65 days later, no arrest, no named suspect, no confirmed motive, and tomorrow morning, her daughter goes back to work. If this is your first time on this channel, welcome to the Silence Case. Every claim in this video is attributed to a named source. Every piece of evidence is publicly confirmed. We do not speculate. We do not name suspects. We follow the evidence exactly where it leads. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell. What we are about to build has not been assembled this way anywhere else. By the end of this video, you are going to understand why the person who took Nancy Guthrie should be far more unsettled by a morning show anchor going back on air than by anything that has happened in this investigation for the last 65 days. Let's go. Here is the thing nobody is saying about tomorrow. Every outlet covering Savannah's return is telling the same story. Grief, healing, a daughter finding her way back, a morning show returning to normal. And all of that is real. I am not dismissing any of it. But there is a completely different story underneath that one. And it starts with who has been watching this investigation for 65 days. Him. The person who came to Nancy's house that night had a plan, a careful one. He had been to that neighborhood before. The FBI confirmed that surveillance activity in the area predated January 31st by weeks. He knew which cameras to disable. He knew which lights to knock out. He knew which doors to prop open. And he used Nancy's own flower pots to do it. He knew the layout of that house in the dark. This was not improvised. This was studied, which means he has been watching everything since. Watching the coverage, watching the tip line, watching the DNA move slowly through 2 laboratories with no public result, watching the Bitcoin wallet he created sit empty on a public blockchain, watching the reward climb to $1.1 million, and watching 65 days pass without a single person coming forward to claim it, and calculating that the media cycle is fragmenting, on that the public attention is spreading thin, that the distance between now and the moment it feels safe to move is getting shorter. Safe to spend, safe to surface, safe to disappear completely. And then tomorrow morning, at 7 o'clock, Savannah Guthrie walks back onto that screen. 3 million people reminded in a single instant. Nancy Guthrie is still missing. Her daughter is still here, and the investigation is still running. That is not a grief story. That is a trap closing. And the person who has been calculating for 65 days just ran out of runway. Retired FBI Special Agent Jason Pack was asked publicly what Savannah's return means for this investigation. His answer was precise. And it is the most important thing anyone has said publicly about this case in weeks. He said, what Savannah is doing is something he has seen families do in cases like this more times than he can count. You get up, you put one foot in front of the other, you trust the authorities, and you keep living. Because the alternative, staying home, staying silent, staying broken, is letting whoever did this win twice. And then he said the line that reframes everything about tomorrow. He said, it just so happens that in this case, the person doing that is the anchor of the Today Show, and her office is a national television studio. Let that sit for a moment. Her office is a national television studio. The person who took Nancy Guthrie chose this victim because of who her daughter was. They believed that connecting to someone with Savannah's platform would produce leverage, desperation, the kind of chaos that makes a family pay and stay silent. They thought the platform was the weapon they were wielding. They did not calculate that the platform would come back. Tomorrow, it comes back. 3 million people, live, national, unavoidable. And every second Savannah is on that screen is a message transmitted directly into the room where he is watching. The message is simple. You did not break this family. You did not silence this story. You chose wrong. Before we go further, I need you to hear something that will change the way you have been listening to Savannah. Because everything she has said publicly in the weeks before this return, every interview, every statement, every word she has chosen carefully in front of cameras, is not just grief on display. It is a communication aimed at one specific person. She said this publicly in her interview with Hoda Kotb. broadcast nationally, watched by millions. She said, "I will not let sadness win. For her, I saw her grieve. I saw her world shudder. I saw it, and I saw her get up, and I saw her belief, and I saw her love, and I saw her hope, and I saw her smile, and I saw her laugh. I saw her joy." And then she said this, "I will not fall apart. I will not let whoever did this take my children's mother from them. I will not let them take my joy. They will not take my sister's joy. They will not take my brother's joy. They will not take our love. They will not take our faith. But our anguish is real. We need help. We need someone to tell the truth. I have no anger in my heart. I have hope in my heart. I have love. But this family needs peace. We need an answer. And someone has it in their power to help. When you do, the warmth of love and forgiveness that will come will be greater than can be imagined. I know what it is to be forgiven, and there is no greater joy, and that joy awaits. Now I want you to read those words again, not as a daughter, not as grief. Read them as a negotiating strategy used by someone who has been in close daily contact with the FBI for 65 days, who has sat in rooms where investigators have shown her things the public has never seen, who has been advised by people whose entire career is built around understanding how missing person cases break open. She is not threatening. She is not accusing. She is offering. She is telling the person who took her mother and anyone who knows anything about what happened that the door is open. That forgiveness is real and available. That there is a path through this that does not end in the kind of fury a jury brings when an 84-year-old woman is kidnapped from her own home in the middle of the night. That is not a mother pleading on television. That is a precision instrument aimed at one person. And then she said one more thing, the sentence that turns everything upside down. She said, "My joy will be my protest. My joy will be my answer." Think about the calculation the person who took Nancy made. He believed that taking her would break this family, would produce the kind of helpless desperation that opens wallets and closes mouths. He chose this target precisely because of the platform, because he thought a mother being missing would bring the platform to its knees. It did not bring it to its knees. It brought it back to air on April 6th in front of 3 million people. 65 days later. That is not grief. That is a declaration. Now here is the first plot twist, the one that nobody in the mainstream coverage has caught. Why April 6th? Why this specific date? Savannah did not have to go back this week. NBC would have waited. The network has been surviving without her for 65 days. The show has continued. The revenue has continued. Nobody from NBC was publicly pushing her to return on any particular date. She chose April 6th, day 65, and she framed the choice in language that I want you to hold carefully. She said, "I think it's part of my purpose right now. Part of my purpose right now. Not healing, not moving forward, not even honoring her mother. Her purpose. A woman who has spent 65 days in daily contact with the FBI, who has information about this investigation that the public has never seen, who has been in rooms where things have been said that she has been careful, in every single interview across dozens of public appearances, never to reveal. That woman opened a calendar, chose a date, and called it her purpose. Pack said something about this that deserves to be heard in full. He said her office is a national television studio, and she knows that. She knows that. Every word she says tomorrow, every second of composure on that screen, every moment she smiles or asks a question or does her job in front of 3 million people while her mother is still missing 60 miles away in Arizona. All of it is a message, and the message is not for the audience. It is for him. Watch, you did not win. I am still here, and so is everyone who is looking for her. Here is the second plot twist, and this one, when it lands, changes the entire picture of what Savannah has been doing for the last 65 days. When she spoke to Hoda Kotb in her nationally broadcast interview, she said something that every outlet covered as a grief moment. Raw testimony, a daughter in anguish searching for words. But I want you to listen to one specific phrase again. She said, "Someone needs to do the right thing." How can someone vanish without a trace? How? Someone knows something. Even if it is just that someone has been acting strange for the last 7 or 8 weeks. Someone knows. And maybe somebody's afraid. I understand that. But our hearts are in agony. Even if it is just that someone has been acting strange. Gosh, that is not grief talking. That is a specific behavioral description, a documented pattern, the pattern that investigators use in exactly the type of case this is: contractor cases, worker cases, cases where the suspect had a legitimate professional reason to be in the victim's orbit before the crime. Here is what the behavioral research says about people who carry out operations like this one. They do not go back to their normal lives cleanly. They change. They become quieter. Or they become louder. They withdraw from social circles, or they insert themselves obsessively into coverage of the case. They make small errors, saying something they should not know, avoiding a topic they should be able to discuss easily, showing the weight of something that is not supposed to be visible, and the people around them notice. A co-worker who cannot explain why something feels different about this person, a family member who has been watching someone they love for 7 weeks and sees a shift they cannot name, a friend who keeps telling themselves, "It is probably nothing. I do not want to be wrong. I do not want to get involved." When Savannah said, "someone knows," she was not speaking to 3 million general viewers. She was speaking to one specific person in that audience, the one who has noticed something, the one who has been carrying this knowledge for 65 days and does not know what to do with it. And tomorrow, when Savannah walks back into Studio 1A, that person is going to be watching too, and they are going to have to make a decision. $1.1 million. That reward has been sitting there since February. And for 65 days, nobody has claimed it. That silence is one of the most revealing facts in this entire case. Because in a disappearance with this level of national media saturation, with this size of reward, with the FBI visibly and publicly involved, 65 days of tip-line silence tells you something precise about the social world of the person responsible. It is small. Either this person operated in complete isolation, no one in their life knows what they did, no coworker who noticed at strange hours, no family member who got a wrong answer to a simple question, no roommate who saw something change the morning of February 1st, or the person who knows something has not yet decided that $1.1 million is worth the risk of the conversation, or they are afraid. Savannah said it herself. Maybe somebody is afraid. I understand that. Tomorrow, when she is on that screen in front of 3 million people, she is speaking to that person again, with the full weight of a national broadcast behind every word, and the offer she made, that forgiveness is possible, that someone has it in their power to help and to receive something greater than they can imagine in return, that offer is still open. It will be more powerful tomorrow morning than it has been on any single day since February, because tomorrow it has a face on a screen. Let's talk about what the investigation actually looks like on day 65, because the 3 leads that are still running deserve to be understood precisely, not as reassurance, as reality. The DNA is in 2 laboratories, a complex mixture, multiple contributors. According to what C.C. Moore of Parabon Nanolabs confirmed publicly, if the person responsible contributed less than 40% of that mixture, the technology to extract their profile does not currently exist. That is not a failure of effort. That is the honest ceiling of the science as it stands today. But Moore also said this, and this matters. New deconvolution equipment is being accelerated specifically because of this case. A company called Astrea had technology planned for later in the year. According to what Moore heard, they pushed it to the front of the line. If they get a viable profile, genetic genealogy will solve this within weeks. The FBI team is ready. They will work night and day. The contractor investigation is a mess. Those are the exact words of investigators running it. He confirmed publicly through Ashley Banfield's reporting. Because day laborers use false names, because records do not exist, because the border is 60 miles south. But the FBI is still asking for individual names, not company names, individual names, of every worker on every construction project in the Catalina foothills in the months before February 1st. They are running every name against the profile of the person they are looking for. Detective Clint Cole, who solved the Nancy Woodrum case, a case with direct structural parallels to this one, told Banfield publicly what he learned from that investigation. His suspect had already been spoken to before the case broke, already been inside the interview pool, already answered questions. The distance between that conversation and the arrest was 7 months. When the lesson Cole took from that case was not a theory, it was a directive. Get in the room, face to face, because what a phone call misses, a detective in the same room does not. And the Bitcoin wallet address created the night the ransom notes were sent, still on the public blockchain. Empty, monitored, permanent, being mapped backward by the FBI's virtual asset unit since February 4th. According to what Ari Redboard of TRM Labs confirmed publicly, the moment those funds touch any regulated exchange anywhere in the world, the FBI knows. Instantly, automatically, irreversibly, 3 leads, all alive, all running, and tomorrow, Savannah adds a 4th, 3 million people reminded. 1 tip line. 1 person in America who knows something and has been watching that anchor chair sit empty for 65 days. Tomorrow it is not empty, and they are going to have to decide. Now let's talk about what those first 48 hours actually cost. Because the crime scene at Nancy Guthrie's home was not treated as a crime scene from the beginning, and the evidence of that failure is not abstract. According to what former forensic crime scene investigators confirmed publicly in detailed analysis of this case, the doormat at Nancy's front entrance was never collected as evidence. Never. It was there when the first officers arrived on February 1st. It was there on day 2 when news crews walked the driveway without restriction, walking directly past the blood drops confirmed as Nancy's. Walking past the object that had been sitting in the path of a masked individual who stood at that door at 2 in the morning with gloves and a backpack and a holstered weapon. That individual, 5 feet 9 inches to 5 feet 10 inches, average build, stood at that entrance, reached into the potted plant to grab foliage to cover the camera, pressed against the frame, stood on that surface, would have left trace evidence, fiber transfer, shoe impressions in compressed fabric, touched DNA transferred through the plant material. That doormat was never collected. Forensic expert Ed, who appeared publicly in detailed analysis of this case, has a principle he said he has applied for his entire career in situations exactly like this one. When in doubt, cut it out and submit it to the lab. He said he has cut out sections of concrete sidewalk and submitted them to laboratories. Sections of housing authority concrete floors. He would have taken that doormat on day 1 without hesitation. It remained. Because the supervisor who ran that first response had never investigated a homicide before. Because investigators treated the scene as a search and rescue operation while blood dried on the front porch. Because news reporters walked past the evidence on day 2 and a pizza delivery driver was photographed near the scene while deputies were still on site. Those hours are gone. That evidence window cannot be reopened. But here's the thing about doormat evidence, about fiber transfer, about trace material under the right conditions in the dry Arizona desert air. Some of it persists. The question is not whether the doormat should have been collected on day 1. The question is whether it has been collected since, quietly, without announcement. As part of the broader investigative work the task force has been doing since day 33. And if it has not, the window may not be fully closed. Tomorrow, when Savannah goes back on air, the blood stain will still be at that threshold. The flower pots will still be on that back patio. The answer will still be somewhere in those 2 laboratories, or on that public blockchain, or in a list of contractor names that investigators are still working through one by one. The first 48 hours are gone, but the evidence is not. Here is the moment this entire video has been building toward. The person who took Nancy Guthrie made a calculation, a careful one. And they calculated that a targeted operation, weeks in preparation, studied surveillance of the property across multiple visits, knowledge of the cameras and the lights and the flower pots and the layout of the kitchen in the dark, would produce leverage. The kind of leverage that comes from taking the mother of one of the most recognizable faces in American morning television. They believed the platform was the weapon. They thought the platform would produce desperation. Pay the ransom. Stay quiet. Make this go away. They calculated wrong because they looked at who Savannah Guthrie was, and they did not look at who made her, Nancy Long Guthrie, the woman who rebuilt her life from nothing after her husband died at 49. The woman who looked at the wreckage of that loss, a widow at 46, 3 children, in a life that needed reconstructing from the ground up, and chose not to collapse. She got up. She decided. She did. And the thing she told her daughter in the darkest days of that grief has been the engine of everything that has happened in 65 days of this investigation. You have to get up and decide and do. Just decide and do. That is the woman they took, and this is what that woman built. Jason Pack said it with the economy of someone who has spent a career watching families in exactly this moment. You can kidnap somebody's mama. You cannot kidnap their backbone. Tomorrow morning, when Savannah Guthrie walks into Studio 1A at Rockefeller Plaza and takes her seat for the first time in 65 days, the person who studied that neighborhood across multiple Saturdays, who disabled those cameras in sequence, and who used Nancy's own flower pots to prop open her own doors, who spent 41 minutes inside an immaculate house and walked a woman out in the dark, is going to understand something that he did not fully calculate when he chose this family. The backbone is intact, the platform is live, and 3 million people are tuning in. DNA in 2 laboratories, a Bitcoin address that cannot be deleted, a contractor list being worked name by name, a doormat that may still hold what 65 days of investigation has not yet found, and one person in America, somewhere, who has noticed something, who has been carrying something for 65 days, who is going to turn on the television tomorrow morning and see Savannah Guthrie looking back, and will have to decide, 65 days, no arrest. But she is not forgotten. She will never be forgotten. Not while her daughter has a microphone. Not while this community keeps placing yellow flowers outside her home. Not while this channel keeps building the evidence the way it should have been built from the beginning. As of April 5th, 2026, day 64, this is the confirmed status. No suspect publicly named. No arrest made. Nancy Guthrie's whereabouts remain unknown. DNA in 2 separate laboratories. Complex mixture. New deconvolution technology being accelerated specifically because of this case. No result publicly confirmed. Contractor investigation active. FBI requesting individual names of every worker on every construction project in the Catalina foothills. One neighbor who moved out before Nancy disappeared is being investigated as a potential staging location. A Bitcoin wallet address on the public blockchain. Empty, monitored, permanent. Being mapped backward by the FBI's virtual asset unit since February 4th. Sheriff Chris Nanos faces a unanimous no confidence vote, 241-0, a formal recall effort, and a Board of Supervisors inquiry into his work history and statements made under oath. Tomorrow, April 6th, 2026, day 65. Savannah Guthrie returns to the Today Show. The first time she has been on air as co-anchor since January 30th, 2 days before her mother was reported missing. Total reward, $1.1 million. FBI tip line, 1-800-CALL-FBI. This case is not cold. Tomorrow is proof of that. Her name is Nancy Long Guthrie. She is the woman who rebuilt her life after her husband died at 49 and left her alone with 3 children. Wife, the woman who told her daughter, in the darkest days, you have to get up and decide and do. Just decide and do. She is the woman Savannah calls every morning. She is the woman her grandchildren call grandma. She is the woman who tended her garden in the Arizona sun, who kept her home exactly the way she wanted it, who attended church with her friends every Sunday, who removed her hearing aids every night and placed them on the nightstand beside her bed. She is still present tense to her daughter. Not was, is. She is still here. And tomorrow, her daughter is going to walk back into the most watched morning studio in America. 65 days after Nancy left her home in her pajamas, without her shoes, without her medication, without her phone, without anything she would have chosen to leave without. And Savannah is going to sit down at that desk, and she is going to do her job. And every single second of that, every breath held together by someone who wakes up in the dark every night and imagines her mother's terror, is going to be a message transmitted directly into the living room of the person who thought he had calculated everything. A message that reads, "You chose the wrong family. You targeted a woman whose daughter refuses to disappear. You thought the platform was the weapon. It was never the weapon. She was. And we are still here, and we are still coming. Nancy Guthrie deserves to come home. Her family deserves answers. If you have any information, no matter how small, no matter how ordinary it seemed at the time, call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Total reward, $1.1 million. Complete anonymity. If you worked in the Catalina foothills in the months before February 2026, as a contractor, a landscaper, a pool worker, a painter, an electrician, and you remember a face, a question, a moment that felt slightly off, call today, not tomorrow, today. If you have been watching someone in your life for the last 65 days and something about them has changed, something you cannot fully name, a heaviness that was not there before, a distance, a wrong word at the wrong moment, a wrong reaction to this story, call. Maybe somebody is afraid. Savannah understood that. She said so herself, out loud, on national television. To you, but this family needs peace, and someone has it in their power to give it to them. The warmth of love and forgiveness that will come, she promised that, in her own words, when on the most watched morning show in America. That offer is still open. It will still be open tomorrow morning when she walks back through those studio doors. The first 48 hours are gone, but tomorrow is not gone. Tomorrow, 3 million people tune in, and one of them knows something. Call 1-800-CALL-FBI. And neither is Nancy. This video presents analysis based exclusively on publicly documented evidence and statements attributed to named sources. All individuals referenced in connection with this investigation are presumed innocent unless and until formally charged and convicted in a court of law. The Guthrie family has been officially cleared as suspects by the Pima County Sheriff's Department. No individual not named by law enforcement is identified or implied as a suspect in this video. The purpose of this channel is to examine documented evidence, not to prosecute, advocate, or speculate beyond what confirmed reporting supports. The silenced case, where documented evidence reveals what someone decided you shouldn't know.